What's up, everybody? Welcome to Take No Offense. A couple of old friends who grew up together in Pennsylvania. Now we live on opposite sides of the country, getting together to share our thoughts on politics, sports, movies, and TV. I'm Eric Messersmith in the Los Angeles area. Brian Johnson is in suburban Washington, D.C. How are you, my friend?
Dude, you just turn it on. I mean, the energy is fantastic. It's late on a Monday when we're recording, and
It is.
I'm happy to hear your at least one of us is bringing it. You got your
It's
coffee. You're
it's coffee.
feeling prickly? Is that
Yeah,
from the
it's got.
desert?
If you're watching us on YouTube, it's got cacti on the cup there. You know that cacti is the plural of cactus, right?
I did know that. My family went to the Grand Canyon without me, and apparently it has some of the sharpest cacti in the world.
Yes.
It
I
can
there
it can
I
cut
have
through your shoe.
I have been around. We went to Joshua Tree, which is a incredible national park out here, a couple
Peyote?
hours east of LA. What's that?
Peyote?
What's peyote?
That isn't that why people go to Joshua Tree to use
Oh,
peyote,
to do
the
no. Well,
psychedelic drugs.
that's not why we went, but
Ah,
yes, people do that. But anyway, they were saying when we walked through, they have a large farm of or a large area of cacti that you can't even get close to it. Like apparently,
oh
it's not
wow!
only that you can't touch it, but the needle will like somehow they're like this long. They'll jump out and stick to your hand if you just walk near it. So
I do remember my bride saying she was very happy I was not on this trip with them. That I may have gone into cardiac arrest with the children around these
yeah,
sharp cacti. Ah,
yeah.
cacti talk.
So, Brian, we had turning to a more serious matter. So, yesterday we had a terrorist attack in Boulder, Colorado, and this was against a group of pro Israel demonstrators, a makeshift Molotov cocktails by an Egyptian national who was yelling Free Palestine as he did this. He burnt people. No one has died, at least so far. Two people remain in the hospital in critical condition. This comes on the heels of last week a couple leaving a Jewish museum in D.C. who were worked for the Israeli embassy. They were targeted and executed outside of that museum. A few months ago, the Jewish governor of Pennsylvania, Josh Shapiro, who I've talked about a lot on this show, who I think is a future political star in America, someone tried to burn down the governor's mansion because of his support for Israel, even though obviously as the governor of Pennsylvania, he has no direct role in shaping the policy of the United States. It is interesting because we are seeing it's one thing for high levels of anti-Semitism. It's another thing to be in an area where we're actually seeing violence targeted against Jewish people. And you are uniquely qualified, I think, to speak about this because we talk about this on the show a lot. You work in the security field, and specifically for a long time, you worked as a person providing security for the Jewish Federation down there in the greater DC area.
Yeah, I was going through it, and I actually, when the first incident happened at the Washington Museum, I was talking to Tricia about how many of those events we attended, not necessarily as security personnel, but as guests. And then, of course, I mean, there were hundreds of events over the year that I prepared the security detail and the security plan for those events. Um, it was pre-COVID. It was like 2018 during one of the many conflicts in Gaza. Not to make a joke of it, but it happens from time to time where you saw, you know, a support Israel gathering. This one was at the White House, and then you would have a counter demonstration. In this case, it was Code Pink, you know, a pro-Palestinian group, and it was nonviolent. I mean, both parties showed up. They said what they had to say, and you know, some tempers flared, but it wasn't what we're seeing now. I mean, these were this was a a peaceful gathering, a peaceful rally, and then there would be a peaceful opposition protest. The way America is supposed to work. But now that seems like we've crossed that line, and I think it's a reasonable expectation to think that there's going to be more violence in the future. Because what I will say is, I do know members of the Jewish community are not going to stop supporting Israel. They're not going to stop publicly demonstrating their support of Israel. So the preparation needs to be with a higher likelihood of violence.
It's a terrifying time to be a Jew in America. And it's different. It wasn't. This is new. I mean, it's not new historically,
Right.
obviously, but this is new in America. Like this is not how, at least in my lifetime and the lifetime of a lot of people, Jews have been treated by and large. Obviously, anti-Semitism is as old as time itself. It goes back to Jesus' time. I mean, it's obviously reared its ugly head throughout history. It never really went away. But there's no question that it is far worse now. If you look at the number of hate crimes directed toward Jews, the level of anti-Semitic threats, they're all the numbers are off the charts. And it really is because I think of several factors, but the leading one is what you mentioned, the war right now, specifically what's been going on since October 7th, 2023, and the horrific war between Israel and Gaza. And look, you can criticize and question some of Israel's military tactics, but this is way, way, way beyond that. And I think a lot of it started on the college campuses with the protests we saw there. And anytime you get into violent anti-Semitic rhetoric and doing things like blocking Jewish students from getting to class, that's those are the kind of things that lead to then a permission structure for some of these wackos to take it even a step farther. And so I think protesting is fine, as you mentioned. There's nothing wrong with protesting. There's nothing wrong with protesting Israel. There's nothing wrong with protesting the war in Gaza. That's all fine. But we have allowed it to cross over that threshold. And I think specifically with this individual in this latest attack, this is a man who apparently, the reporting is he overstayed his visa and was in the country illegally. And look, one of the things that I'm generally speaking with the Trump administration on is extreme vetting of some of the people that come here, both as seeking citizenship and also people who come here on visas. I think we need to do a thorough scrub of social media. And if you have any kind of links to Hamas, to terrorist organizations, I'm sorry, but you shouldn't be in this country. You don't have to agree with the American government or the Israeli government and everything. That's fine. And I do think the Trump administration has taken it too far with some of their arrests of people just simply for speech they didn't like. And some of those people, by the way, courts have then freed them because of that, right? We have a system of checks and balances, luckily, where if they go too far, the courts can step in and say, hey, no, wait a minute. This person was merely speaking against the war, for instance, right? So I'm not saying the Trump administration gets it right every time. I want to be clear. But I think in general, we do need much stronger vetting because there are people in this world. We just have to be realistic about it. Like I'm very pro immigration. I want more immigrants to come to America. We need them. We're not having enough babies in America. But whether they're coming here as citizens or whether they're on student visas or work visas or we have to vet these people aggressively because we just have to be realistic with the fact that there are sadly a large number of people who just simply do not share our values, the open society democratic Western values. They just don't believe in it. They and a lot of those people are represented in some of these pro-Palestinian movements we've seen. Obviously not everybody, but there are a lot of them, and we need to be very aggressive in vetting these people. Otherwise, I don't know what else you do, because as you pointed out, like security is great, but you can only harden targets so much. Eventually, you have to try to stop the people actually perpetrating the crimes.
Yeah, I mean, that's an interesting question because the reality is, if you have a motivated individual who's determined to create damage, it's going to be very difficult in most venues to stop them from doing it. It's why these attacks are successful in terms of the impact that they make. Now, successful is a relative term. I mean, if you have this isn't the right word, a sane person who, like likes their family and wants to stick around and doesn't want to probably die or at least go to jail for the rest of their life, they're probably not going to do this type of thing because the likelihood they're going to get away with it is almost zero. But my point being is that if you have a motivated person who's willing to sacrifice themselves, their life, or their freedom, I mean, there really is only so much you can do from a security perspective at that event. To
Right.
the point about keeping them out of the country, I think you're being idyllic from the perspective of the undertaking that it would be to actually vet people 100%. before they come into the country. It's not reasonable. That's not going to happen. Now, if you do the math, it's certainly going to reduce the percentage chances, which is, I think, what you're talking about. I just think in this environment, with what we have going on and what I personally believe is accountable for these types of incidents taking occurring, our public discourse and the conversations that we have in the media, on social media, around Israel and Palestine. I mean, dude, honestly, I know I've talked to you about this. They're unhealthy the way that these things are discussed. And unfortunately, I don't want to say uneducated, but let's say ignorant people take this information in and they start repeating what they hear, and it unfortunately it leads to people being hurt.
Right. And I think we just need to have a clear line in the sand where on the one hand, it has to be totally acceptable and people should feel the ability to have the right to criticize aggressively the state of Israel for their policies and the Israeli government specifically in America without being labeled necessarily by definition anti-Semitic. On the other hand, and I think it's a pretty clear line, when you cross over from criticism of the government and the way they're conducting the war or support for the Palestinian people who, well, no matter how you feel about the war, are suffering terribly. When you cross over the line from that to aggressively chanting things like from the river to the sea, when you talk about the end of the state of Israel, when you talk about support for Hamas, which is a terrorist organization, to me, that is when the rhetoric becomes dangerous. Now, look, we have a free country, so I'm not saying you should go to prison for saying those things. What I'm saying is if you're not an American citizen, you are here as a guest. And if you are openly supporting terrorist organizations in America, I'm sorry, but I believe that your guest pass should be revoked because you just do not share the values of our country. And look, America, we are fortunate. We have such a deep history with our ideals, our principles, our freedom of speech, our checks and balances. But look at what's happening in some of these European countries with, and this is where I do, again, I give credence to the argument that a lot of conservatives make about immigration. Unchecked immigration that isn't careful and thoughtful can lead to a population that although they're a minority, they become a significant minority. They don't share the values of the majority. And that is when you can have severe civil strife, and that can undermine a country. And so I think there is an argument and a credibility to that line of thinking.
Well, how we
What?
talk about these things is so important because I certainly don't want to go back to McCarthyism and the Red Scare. And
Absolutely.
I remember the hatred towards all Arabs after 9/11, which was insane. I mean, if you're old enough to remember back to that time, like people, I don't want to undersell how significant the emotional impact is to the Jewish community that these things have happened in recent weeks because certainly when you're measuring the impact, you have two human lives, you have many people injured, we can measure that. The emotional impact is huge and what
Yeah.
that has on the community. That said, I don't know that I want to see us go to the rhetoric or the extremes of the things that I mentioned because that is equally as dangerous on the other side. Going the other way, where now it's fear of the other,
Yeah.
and I don't have a great answer for it. I just know now here's me being idyllic. That's not a path that I want to go down with immigration because I don't think it's true. I think most people that immigrate to this country, 99.99% of them, aren't murdering people.
Right. No, I agree. But my point is if you're sympathetic to a terrorist, like here's the thing. There's a lot of people that want to get here, and there's a limited number of tickets, especially during the Trump administration,
Yes.
when there is a really, I think, again, I want to be clear. I think the Trump administration is making it too hard to get to America for a lot of people who are desperate and who would be great American
And
citizens.
we need.
We need, and I want more immigration. I think on net, immigration is a strength for us compared to a lot of other countries that don't have kind of the melting pot that we do. What I'm saying is, given the demand to get here and the limited number of supply and slots, we have the right and the responsibility to be incredibly selective about who those
Yeah,
people are.
sure.
Now, here's the thing. In the past, we have used that selectivity to discriminate
Yes, we
blatantly in
have.
our if you go back a century, blatantly in our laws, we discriminated primarily against Asians, but
Yeah.
also Catholics. We were very Jews at one time. We were very discriminatory. So I don't believe we should be discriminating based on any kind of religion, religious test, or even where a person is from necessarily. But I think viewpoint discrimination is not only justified, I think it's correct. That is the discrimination we should be looking at. Do you share the value? And again, is there going to be a perfect way to decipher that? Of
No.
course not. But it is a lot easier in the age of social media than it was before, because before a person could lie to you and you had no way to know they were lying. Now, if they're lazy or foolish enough to leave a large imprint in social media, you can catch them in that lie now. And so I think we need to
Well,
be very
these
aggressive in doing that.
to your point about social media, these people, for the most part, do want to be heard. They want their message out, which is why they often say these things on social media. But I mean, dude, my social media would be so boring. It's just my kids' baseball games. Like, what are you possibly going to glean about my political
Oh, you're
views?
saying if you were applying
No,
as yeah.
yes. If I'm applying for position, they're going to be like, "Hey, loves his kids. They play baseball." Like, you have no idea what I think about
But
Israel and
at the
Palestine.
end of the day, this flare up of anti-Semitism and the violence associated with it, it's not going to end
No,
this period until there is some peaceful end to the current war in Gaza. And that doesn't look like it's going to happen
dude, I
anytime soon.
think we're going to be dead and buried
Well, no,
before that happens.
I mean this extreme flare up of the war.
Ah,
That's what I,
gotcha.
that like whenever that ends, you probably will see somewhat of a return to normalcy. But man, I think it's going to be a little while.
I do
Uh,
too.
let let's talk about something else that might be a little while, which is the end of the war in Ukraine. So they had another round of negotiations today that lasted less than a
How'd it
day.
go? Is it over?
Well, they agreed to exchange some prisoners and the bodies of some fallen soldiers. Russia put out a proposal for a 2-day ceasefire only along certain areas of the front, which just shows you they are totally
Not serious.
non-serious, which we all knew. And I think Trump is finally starting to realize, and hopefully he will now put the pressure on Putin. He said the other day he's going to give Putin a few more weeks. I think he said 2 more weeks. There's a bipartisan bill in the Senate that has over 80 co-sponsors ready to launch pretty severe sanctions against Russia. They're just waiting for the go-ahead from Trump. And I don't know what more he needs to see. Like, it is so clear what that one side, Ukraine, really wants to end this war in a just way. And the other side, Russia, has no
No
interest in
interest.
doing that. And I don't know, eventually, we have to get to the point where we make it painful for Russia from a sanctions perspective as much as we can. And also Ukraine, by the way, making it painful for Russia. This assault they carried out yesterday was truly amazing. They're claiming, and we'll see, take it with a grain of salt, but Ukraine is claiming they have damaged or destroyed 30 to 40% of all of the aircraft that Russia has to carry their bombs and missiles. And they did this. These aircraft weren't in Ukraine. They weren't in Western Russia near Ukraine. They were scattered throughout Russia as far away as Siberia and the border with China,
Yeah.
thousands of miles inside of Russia. And Ukraine spent a year and a half developing this plan where they smuggled drones into Russia. They smuggled these wooden cabin type facilities. They put the drones inside of them on the back of trucks and then remotely opened the top, had the drones fly out and attack these airfields. It was that, first of all, credit to Ukraine. Like, you
Yeah.
love to see it. You love to see them, because that is the only way this war will end the way that it should, which is a just and lasting peace, is if Putin really feels it. If he is forced, because the pain threshold is so high that even a brutal thug like him has to say eventually, okay, fine, let's make peace.
Oh, I'm trying to imagine. I did read about it. It is pretty cool. The problem is that it's going to take a lot more. And I don't know how many of these Ukraine has in its bag of tricks. Now, it could surprise me. I think I talked about the emotional impact earlier. I think emotionally, this is great for Ukraine. They needed something like this to happen.
Yeah.
But I would remind people we're talking about Russia. It's a fairly sizable country. It's
Yeah.
got a lot of people. And I know that they lost about $7 billion worth of equipment during this attack. That is not enough to like turn the tide of a war. Ukraine is still in
Well,
deep,
no.
deep trouble.
But well, here's what it shows you though: is Ukraine can continue to fight. I mean, if you look at the lines on the map, the front line, it has hardly moved in the last year.
Yeah,
And Russia has thrown basically everything they have. They've emptied their prisons. They freaking use North Korean soldiers to
that's
try to
desperate. Yeah,
bust through, and they just can't. Now, Ukraine has admitted, and Zelensky's, they don't have the ability right now militarily to bust through the other way and take back their territory.
right.
This war is essentially a stalemate, and we're going on 3.5 years now. And I think what Ukraine showed you with this attack and the way they've been holding up in the front line is as long as they continue to get support from Europe and some support from the
Yeah,
United States. We'll see if we do another round of financing now that we've signed this minerals deal. I really hope so. Because again, that is the way to put pressure on Russia to reach a deal. As long as they get some level, they have held up. I mean, incredible credit to them. Like a much smaller nation with a ragtag military at the beginning of this war compared to what Russia had.
yeah.
People were saying this would be over in 2 weeks, and we need to help them, and we need to force Russia to come to the table for a fair settlement. I hope Trump does the right thing. I say that with so many different things. Here's another one: tariffs. So there's reporting today, as we're recording this on Monday, that by Wednesday, the Trump administration is asking several countries that we are in active negotiations with to submit their best offer on a trade agreement. If you recall, back in April, we had
Many
Liberation
deals.
Day.
Many
Yeah, so
deals.
we were going to do many deals,
So
right?
many
We had
deals.
Liberation Deal where we set these extremely high tariff rates on countries that was based on some weird, shoddy math formula that didn't even make a lot of sense. And then a week later, the bond market was showing signs of potentially collapsing. And Trump said, okay, we'll pause this for 90 days. And during those 90 days, which were about roughly 2/3 of the way through, we were supposed to work out these amazing trade deals with all these countries, right? That would make it more fair. And so far, we have one kind of deal with the UK, which doesn't even really have a ton of specifics and nothing else. And we've been hearing for weeks that these trade deals were going to come. And the thing that gives me that makes me very concerned is that we're seeing that so far we're not getting movement in that direction, and that makes me think that maybe we're not going to see much movement in that direction. But the thing that gives me hope is that Trump continues to back down. He backed down on these Liberation Day tariffs. He backed down on China. We had a 145% tariff on China. Now that's down to 30 as we apparently negotiate with them for a period of time. So what Wall Street has taken to calling Trump when it comes to tariffs is Taco Trump. It stands for Trump always chickens out. And a reporter asked him about this at the White House last week,
Love
and
it.
he was so angry. I mean, you could tell. But you know what? It's true so far. And I'll say this: I'm glad it's true. I'm glad Trump always chickens
Listen,
out
do
so
not
far
provoke
because
Donald
it's
Trump.
saving us.
Don't do it, man. Barack Obama made fun of him at the freaking White House Correspondents' Dinner, and now he's going to be president for 8 years. So
No.
I don't know if it's a great idea, seriously, to prod him.
Yeah.
I don't know,
Somebody,
man.
to your point, somebody wrote on X that this reporter, just simply by asking this question, is going to plunge us now into a
Yes,
recession.
right. They are responsible. That's hilarious. I didn't see that, but yes, it could because that is what you don't do with him. Do not play a game of chicken with Donald Trump. I'm telling you, man. For all the things I say about this guy, I'm telling you, I've told you this before on this show. If I had any interaction with him, I would just tell him how great he is, how wonderful he is,
Right.
how amazing he is. And he'd be like, I like this guy. He'd probably make me head of the Secret Service.
As long as he's never seen this YouTube show and listened to our podcast,
Well, yeah, that's true.
then you'd probably be in the.
Well, let's be honest, that's unlikely.
That's true. He's not one of our 15 loyal viewers, I don't think. But I do, again, I just think that it is interesting that we are now 4 months plus into the administration, and we still don't know the answer to the question of what level of tariffs is this administration really willing to stomach for the long term. And I don't even think Trump really knows the answer to that. And I think what's happened is the stock market, luckily and thankfully, has decided that they are going to, their default is now going to be don't freak out. At first, their default was, holy shit, this is crazy, yes, which was true. Like, these tariff rates are going to cause major problems. And so the markets freaked out and tanked there in early April. And what's happened since then, when they were delayed, the tariffs were delayed, is I think now, and that's where this Taco Trump thing comes from, Wall Street has kind of realized, you know what? He says a lot of things. Let's not
right. That is also true. He says a lot of things.
Right. And the market has done pretty well. And so, again, I want to be clear. I'm glad that we have Taco Trump. I hope we continue to, because the alternative to that is really, really high tariffs that, again, are a tax on the American people, because the American people will pay. Walmart said, we're going to raise prices. And Trump basically was like, no, don't, Walmart. I'm going to be watching you. Because of course they are. Companies can eat some of
money.
This.
No.
Right, especially the big companies.
They won't do anything. They'll use it as an excuse to make more money, Eric.
Right. They can eat some of it. But you know who can't eat any is the mom and pop shops. That's who I feel really bad for. And those are the people that are going to suffer.
No company is eating anything. It's being passed on to the consumer, I promise.
No, I agree. I think they'll eat it if they find that it will give them a short-term strategic advantage. Like if they can get market share because they can keep a price low enough to undercut. Yeah. But long term, you're right. It's going to be passed on to the consumer. Of course it is. And who are those consumers? They are, by and large, people in the middle class and the working class, because they're the people who spend all their money. Most of us, right?
Yeah.
We spend our money.
They buy crap instead of assets or things they need.
Right. Rich people save a lot of their money. They don't spend it. And so not only is it a tax, but it is a regressive tax. It is a tax that by and large impacts the most the people that can least afford it. So we'll see. Again, it's to be continued on that. One other thing, I thought this was kind of interesting. I thought one of the developers of Anthropic, one of the AI companies, said this week that AI has gotten so good, the generative AI that's coming out, that it's going to replace half of the entry-level workers in fields like law and finance, and unemployment could hit 20% in the next 5 years due to AI. Now, I don't know if that's going to happen or not, but I do know that companies are laying off. I just saw today Meta is going to lay off a bunch of people for that check for their privacy and their policies are being followed on Facebook, Instagram, and WhatsApp. They're going to lay them off and give it to AI. Microsoft did something similar a few weeks ago. You see a lot of marketing jobs that are being lost. AI can do that. I don't know if you've seen the new videos that the newest version of Chat GPT and AI can do. They're actually good. They're the first time I've ever seen good AI videos. Like, it is here, and we are so unprepared. I think as a society, we are just so unprepared for what this could do.
Yeah, I told you before, I use AI all the time for all kinds of things. Because why wouldn't you?
I mean, think about this. We're $36 trillion in debt and counting, right? And unfortunately, this big, beautiful bill, if it passes, is going to make that even worse.
Yeah.
We are doing that when we have no war. We haven't had a war in years, right? Iraq's been over for a while. We left Afghanistan 4 years ago. We have no recession, no major financial crisis right now. We have very low unemployment, and we are still there. What happens if if these predictions are right and unemployment goes to 20%
I think we'll figure
or
it out.
thereabouts.
I do.
I
And
hope. I
no,
don't know
but
how.
listen, man,
How though? What do we do if
because
20% of people are out of work?
oh my God, this is I'm worried about how I'm going to sound. But during the housing crisis in 2008, I wasn't worried at all. You know why? Because we'll just make it up. Because our money, the dollar isn't backed by a gold standard anymore. It's backed by Tomahawk missiles. And because we say it is. Um, Also, because COVID happened, that was another experience in our lifetime where we told
Yeah.
people, like, just don't go to work for a while
Yeah.
and we'll work this all out. So it that leads me to believe that it may not be handled perfectly. And there's certainly during each of those previous instances I mentioned, people suffered terribly in different parts of the country and all different ways. People were impacted. This is going to be a Trump word, hugely. But at the same time, if we see this unemployment rise because of I do have a lot of faith and confidence that we'll come together and figure it out. Because in America, what we do the best is when we really have to do something, we actually do it. People
Well,
come together and they
I
figure it
think
out.
that was true. I think I agree with you that that was true. I'm not sure it's true anymore. Here's the thing that because I generally agree with your argument, like, but if you look at so for instance, when we had all those other crises over time,
Yeah.
we still had a debt that was low compared to the size of our economy.
Right.
What's happened though is because we just kept putting more and more on the credit card, now our debt is the same size.
That's their
It's about
GDP.
100 as our GDP. That has not been true since World War II, which obviously was a very unique circumstance, right? So we are in dangerous territory. And the thing that it's not the missile that backs our money. It's not gold. It's faith. It's
Oh
the faith that
no!
America
Come
was
on,
safe.
I'm making a joke.
Right.
The
No, I know,
faith
but
that
what I'm saying,
Tomahawk missiles is the same thing. It's made up.
right. But that faith was strong because we were in an uncertain world, the best bet. But what you have seen recently, and this is why Trump paused the reciprocal tariffs, is the bond market
Oh yeah.
is starting to show signs of cracking. We are not selling our treasuries like we were before. And the yields, this gets a little weird and technical, but the yields are rising, meaning people want more return to buy the bonds.
Of
That's
course.
okay to some degree. But what happens eventually is the bonds, people really just decide America's not a safe bet to pay back its debt anymore. And if that ever happens, and again, I'm not saying it's going to happen, but it's in play now in a way that it has never been in my lifetime, maybe before. It's in play that America, you saw the Moody's a couple of weeks ago. I don't even know if we talked about this, downgraded our credit for the first time ever. We lost our AAA credit rating. And now all three, we no longer have a perfect credit rating with any of the three major agencies, all within the last 10, 12 years they've lowered. And why have they done it? Because exactly what you were talking about, political dysfunction.
Yeah.
They say that we no longer show the ability to do what you talked about, to come together when there was a crisis, get our shit together and figure it out. And that worries me
See,
when
I
we
just
head
think
into
the way that
uncertain
people
times.
remember COVID, I think a lot of it was about having a mask, not having a mask, bleach. I think we got distracted from the big thing, which is that largely, like I said, we told everyone except for very essential personnel to not show up to work. We developed a vaccine in like record time and we're able to administrate
We
it
did.
across a very large country with a lot of people in a very tight window. And you're talking about a global pandemic. So yeah, I get how people would maybe when they think about it, they would think about this political dysfunction you're talking about because you got again a guy up there talking about bleaching your lungs. But at the same time, like that can't take away from everything that was achieved during that time.
I never thought I'd say this, but Brian Johnson, the eternal optimist. I love it. Glass half
Yeah,
full. I
yeah.
love it.
Wow.
All right, Brian, let's turn to the world of sports. NBA finals are set. How does this matchup strike you? If I would have told you the beginning of the year, it's going to be the Thunder and the Pacers in the NBA Finals, two of the league's smallest media markets. The Thunder are a big favorite. They're a 9.5 point favorite game one. I got to be honest, this finals matchup isn't really doing it for me. I was very excited at the beginning of the playoffs, but as the playoffs have gone on, my interest level has dropped precipitously, shall we say.
I'm not saying I fall into this category, but if you really like NBA basketball and you really like two great teams, Indiana, Oklahoma City is a fantastic matchup for the NBA Finals. What this obviously is not going to do is bring in the casual fan.
Yeah.
There's nothing there that says I have to tune in and watch this. And for that, I'm sure the ratings for this NBA Finals are going to suffer. And honestly, they may have anyway. That might have been the case. But make no mistake, Oklahoma City from start to finish has been the best NBA team this season. And
Oh,
Indiana
absolutely.
is a very exciting team, man.
They
They
are. They've
Halliburton
earned it.
and Nesmith and Siakam, they have a good team. They have good players. I mean, they were kind of lucky to get past the Knicks, but I mean, first NBA Finals for the Pacers that I can remember.
Since
Uh,
2000, since
yeah,
the
since Reggie in
end of the
2000,
Reggie
and that
Miller.
was after Jordan retired. Finally,
They have never won the championship. This is their second appearance, and the Thunder have never won it in Oklahoma City. They did win
right?
it as the Seattle Supersonics. I think it's 79. I think the year we were born, Seattle won the championship. So look, the Thunder have are historically good.
They're
They
really
won
good.
68 games. They had the best point differential in the history of the NBA this year.
That's
They
right.
outscored their opponents by 13 points a game,
I
which is
love point
incredible.
differential.
I mean, so they are, and they have the MVP and one of the great stars of the game. So, in that regard, it is good for the NBA that you have one of your bright young stars. You need one of the reasons that I said I've lost some interest is I admit my bias. I am kind of a Laker slash Warrior guy. Like I love the Lakers. I live out here in LA. I've been a Laker fan since I was a kid. I LeBron, Luca, and then the Warriors. It's just cool. I like Steph and Draymond. I like what they did with Jimmy Butler. But I'm an older NBA fan. I'm a middle aged dude, right? Those guys, a lot of them are on their way out, and so the younger guys, the younger stars are taking center stage. And so in that regard, it is good. Man, I bet the NBA execs were hoping the Knicks would get there, man.
Oh, for
Because then you
sure.
got Oklahoma City against, the number one media
I mean,
market.
I think the NBA will be fine. I think if there
Yes,
is a silver lining here, it may be the beginning. And I mean, who knows with free agency and the way these things shake out. But Oklahoma City has a first round pick and multiple first round picks for like the next five drafts. And I don't want to
yes.
like overly nerd this out, but typically what happens when you have a great team is like your role players that play significant roles want to move on to other teams and play a more significant role for more money with those teams, which makes sense. Like everyone wants to move on, move up, make more money. Oklahoma City has a chance to actually keep their core of SGA and Holmgren and whoever else they choose to keep on their roster. And for the people they lose, they have the ability to fill in with maybe better players. So it could be the beginning. I mean, again, who knows, of an OKC dynasty.
It could be. The thing that's going to hurt them, I saw this the other day, is the NBA has this, the accelerator thing for contracts if you reach certain thresholds. And because SGA has now been first team All NBA several times and won the MVP, his extension, when they sign it this summer or next summer, it's going to be one of those two. He will be somewhere between 75 and $80 million a season.
Yeah,
That
okay.
is what he's going to sign for. Now in the NBA, there are ways to it's not a hard salary
Yeah, the
cap like the
luxury
NFL, so
tax.
you can, but when you get to that kind of level, it definitely limits what you can do. So once SGA, you're right for now, but man, when SGA signs that 80 million a year extension, that's going to present some cap issues for them.
It's
All
just
right,
so
Brian,
wild to think about, man,
80 million. I know. Rick.
a
Let's talk
year.
about the world of entertainment. We haven't done a show for a couple weeks, so I managed to catch up and finish out some shows I was watching. So I got a lot of reviews this week, but I'll let you go first. You got anything?
Dude, you're going to be up on this one. I rewatched the Star Wars trilogy with my family, episodes 7, 8, and 9.
Oh, that's the bad one.
Well, here's the thing. I actually really enjoyed episode 7. I thought it was good. I thought
Seven is essentially a remake of four.
no, I get that, but I think I didn't think it was a bad movie. I thought it was well done. 8
I
is a
think that's the best.
disaster,
I think seven's the best of that new
and
trilogy. I
9,
agree.
I don't want to talk about it.
I know. Well, let me talk about then, because I generally agree with your assessment.
Oh,
I
and
think
I'm in the
that's
middle of season 2 of The Sopranos. So go ahead.
oh God. We all right, we'll talk about that another time. So I generally agree with your assessment, and that brings me to the first show I want to talk about, which is Andor, right? I have finished season two. The mirror so Andor now, both of its seasons, it only is going to run for two seasons, unfortunately, are on Disney Plus. A spoiler alert, by the way. I may do some spoilers. So Andor to me is not is such a miracle for several reasons. First of all, just it is an amazing television show. It is season one was incredible, and season two actually equals it, in my opinion. It's a 10 out of 10 for me. It's
Wow.
one of my
Oh my
favorite,
God.
it's one of my favorite shows ever. Not only is it an incredible show, but what it has done to rejuvenate and the Star Wars universe I think is incredible, especially for someone like me who grew up as a huge Star Wars fan because of the original trilogy, episodes 4, 5, 6, and then started to kind of have that love wane because of what we've seen in subsequent years, culminating with what you talked about, which was the absolute shit show of episodes
It
7, 8,
was
and
not
9,
good.
and a lot of the Disney Plus shows. And Andor, I think, recaptures that. That's how good it is. Not only as a standalone project is it amazing, an incredible accomplishment, but I think in a way it almost justifies the whole Star Wars universe. It makes it because it shows you what it can be. I
Right.
actually watched then Rogue One, which is the movie from 2016 that is the basis for the show Andor, the main character Cassian Andor, and it's Andor ends right at what will be the beginning of Rogue One. And then Rogue One, if you remember that movie, ends right at the beginning of A New Hope. And so I watched that, and it's really cool to see how it all kind of connects together. And that was another amazing accomplishment with Andor is Tony Gilroy, the creator, knew the end point and got us there. Andor is like four movies. It was released in 3 episode blocks, and each block is almost like a 3 hour movie. There's elements of like an espionage thriller. There's elements of chase scenes and fights. There is elements of, I think, pretty high drama. There's some comedy. There's great themes about the empire and fascism. They even get into like issues like immigration and stuff, but they don't do it in a preachy way. The acting, the writing, everything. I have a few quibbles here or there on certain plot points that worked okay for me, but it's such a minor. They're so minor. I'm not even going to bring them up because overall the show is just so thrilling and amazing. I cannot recommend it highly enough. It is one of, in my opinion, not only is it the best Star Wars thing I've ever seen, surpassing The Empire Strikes Back, in my opinion, which was kind of the goat of Star Wars content, but it ranks up there with the best shows, I think, not just of this year, but of the last several years. So I highly recommend.
Yeah, I mean, I know there are tons of people that are still really into Star Wars. I mean, my 9-year-old liked episode 7, 8, and 9. I think he might have been like the target demo for that. My
Yes.
13-year-old, less impressed. I'm only driving at this to say, like, I have never really been a Star Wars guy. I liked Star Wars when I was a kid, and but as soon as I discovered girls, I stopped really like being into Star Wars. That no, I watched episodes 1, 2, and 3. I saw them at the theater. I saw episode 7 at the theater, but I didn't go see episode 8 because it had such bad word of mouth, and I didn't see episode 9 until it like came out at home. All of that to say, I will probably end up watching Andor on your recommendation because I know if you're giving a show a 10 out of 10, I know it's not just because you love Star Wars. It must really be a good show.
Yeah, and the thing is, Star Wars is for kids, and that was hard. That's hard to accept, I think, when you're no longer a kid,
Yeah.
because you want that feeling that you had when you were a kid. But the problem is the content is no longer geared for you. It's no longer in the sweet spot. And that's why Andor is so tremendous, is because it is Star Wars for adults.
Yeah.
There's no lightsabers. There is a little bit of the Force, but very little. There's no Jedi. And again, I don't have a problem with those things. Those things can lead to good stories. The original trilogy is a great example of that.
Yeah.
But when you take that mysticism and magic away and you focus on the people
Right.
and kind of the nitty gritty of the world that they live in, and really get into the granular details in a way that, Tony Gilroy can do, and still make it thrilling and exciting, and tell these stories in a way that feels like home if you love Star Wars, but also is new and exciting. It takes content that has all this goodwill, but I think has gotten really stale because of some of the failures recently. And it just elevates it into another level of art. That's the best way I can describe it. So you're still getting that world of magic, right?
Yeah.
That you fell in love with as a kid, but you're getting it at a level of writing and acting and production that is, as good as television could be.
It's hard to cast like a wide net and capture everybody. You did remind me, talking about nostalgia. I did see Karate Kid Legends with my
Oh,
family.
how was that?
Uh okay, so me personally, I mean, it's not made for me. This is what I'm saying, is like, did I enjoy Jackie Chan? Of course I did. He's Jackie Chan. Like, he's just, mixing it up, telling his jokes, doing his thing. God, he got old. And then, it's obviously nice to see Daniel San in there, and that whole thing. But the movie itself, I smelled cheese the entire time. Like, never has a movie been so
Oh,
predictable from scene
yeah,
to scene. What I will say though is that my 9-year-old loved it. Like, he
right.
thought it was great. He was so excited to go see it. And the thing is, that's what I'm driving at with your Star Wars thing. It doesn't have to be for everyone. That
Yeah,
that Karate Kid movie, to get my money to buy a ticket, did not have to be directed at me, and it wasn't at all.
right.
Like,
Well, and
it wasn't particularly great in any way, shape, or form. But it also, by today's standards, and this is part of the problem, I think with a lot of movies, is it's fine.
yeah.
It didn't hurt anyone, but like,
And to your
I'm not
to
going to
your point,
remember it a week from now.
as much as I loved Andor, Disney doesn't release their numbers for viewing, but what we've seen, based on the fact that it only got 2 seasons when it was originally
Yeah,
supposed
not
to be
enough people are
five,
watching it.
it didn't do great. It's done okay. It holds up incredibly well. So it's going to be, people are going to be rewatching it for a long time. But it is nowhere near a hit on the level of, say, The Mandalorian, even though it is a much, much, in my opinion, better
Better
show.
show.
So I understand that, and I give
There's
some leeway there.
so many
I'm just
shows like that, buddy.
I'm
Arrested
just
Development.
happy. Right. I'm just happy that that Andor snuck in there
They
and was
got in
made.
there.
Because I will enjoy it for years to come. The other thing I want to talk about real quick was I finished The Last of Us season 2. Did
Ugh.
you do you
I
mind if I spoil it,
No,
or did
dude,
you
I don't
watch?
care, because all I see is memes of that girl being a dad. Like, I don't
Yes.
know what they're talking about, but I get this is a very. I'm probably not going to watch it, man. I mean, honestly, it never really that like
I,
I never watched The Walking Dead.
this is okay. So I have watched both. I'm one of the few people that's probably seen every episode of The Walking Dead, sadly, because it was not very good in its last several seasons. Although it was good in the beginning. The Last of Us is far superior to The Walking Dead. The first season of The Last of Us was genuinely really good,
I've heard people say
really
that.
good. Season 2, in my opinion, did not match that. I give season 2 a 7 out of 10.
Oh wow,
There
it's
were
still
still
pretty
some
good.
there were still some great moments. The production values are really cool. There were still, well, So Bella Ramsey is who you're talking about. She's a lesbian. That's why the dad thing. Her partner in the movie, her girlfriend is pregnant. So that's why the whole I'm going to be a dad thing.
Ah,
So this is mainly about her journey to avenge, again, spoiler alert, although if you're listening to this, you probably have seen it by now, the death of Joel. So Joel, played by the incredible Pedro
Pedro
Pascal.
Pascal.
Speaking of the Mandalorian, he's going to also be in the Fantastic Four movie. He's having a moment right now. He is so
Yes.
good in this show. He like you certain people you just they just have the star quality. You know,
Yeah.
like they just have it, and you see it, and it's just obvious. You can't even really describe it or put your finger on it. He has it. He's incredible in this show, and I give them credit for having the balls to follow through with killing off their main character. You don't see that in many shows.
No.
And it's shocking when it happens. It's violent, it's bloody, and it's an incredible episode. I think it's episode 3, 2 or 3. So there are moments in season 2 of The Last of Us that are really top notch. But I thought some of it was a little bit overwrought. There's some they're playing sometimes you can see a show playing for emotional impact, and there's
Yeah.
a fine line there, right? Because emotional impact has to be really earned, I think, and not forced. And
Correct.
sometimes I think they fall over the line in some of the later episodes of forcing it. And so I wasn't a huge fan of that. It's still an entertaining show. I still would recommend you watch it. But to me, the second season just fell a little short, despite the fact that, again, moments, scenes, and especially the episode where Pedro Pascal's character is killed, Joel, is really some quality television. And I
Remember
give
when?
them
Oh,
credit
sorry.
for sticking to it. Like Game of Thrones is a good example. In the source material, Ned Stark meets his end, right? Early in the show didn't have to do that. They could have taken the liberty of saying, well, this is TV. We want to be more traditional. So we're gonna make a little tweak there. And Ned Stark's gonna live a little while longer and be the hero. And they didn't. They cut off his head. And the show was so much better for it. And the Last of Us source material is the video game, and apparently in the video game that's what happens. Joel is killed brutally, and so I give them credit for sticking with the source material and delivering that impact.
Yeah, I was just thinking. Remember when Charlie died on Lost? That was well earned.
Oh
Remember
yeah.
Charlie
Oh
putting
god,
out?
that was a tough one.
Sad.
That was sad. I also
Yeah.
saw Sirens on Netflix.
What is that? Have you
That
heard of
is
Mobland? I
I've
heard people
heard of it.
talking
I've
about
not seen it.
Mobland. I may check
I've
that
not
out.
seen it. Sirens is a weird show. Like it is one of the most unique shows I've seen in a while. I would actually recommend checking it out. I'll give it a 7 out of 10. It's got a really good cast. Julianne Moore, it's got Kevin Bacon, and the woman who plays the young Rhaenyra Targaryen in the first season of House of the Dragon,
Millie Alcock.
Millie Alcock. She's really good. Completely different role and really good in this show. And this show is the reason I say it's weird is because it it's very intense as a drama at times, and then it's really just like silly and goofy and kind of funny as a comedy in the same episode. And then they don't overplay it, but there's clearly a backdrop of mysticism, of kind of a supernatural element to the plot as well that kind of comes and goes with the story. The thing about this show that is unique is there is really just a lot of the characters have been through some pretty intense trauma, and the way that they kind of talk about it and lay it out, you don't usually see it that aggressive in a show. And I think all by and large it's pretty well done. And again, mixed in with some like kind of zany comedy, and then so it's just kind of a unique show. And I'm glad they made it. I found it interesting. It's set in on the Hamptons, or an island like the Hamptons, in a big beautiful home and like a beautiful state by the beach. So it's visually really a cool show to watch. I think you'd like it. I would recommend it. All right,
I
that's all I got this week. You got anything else?
I'm glad I remembered I watched a movie that came out. I mean, I'm impressed with myself on that one. No, buddy, I'm good. I'm getting tired. As an old person, I'm gonna have to figure out how to use YouTube. So hopefully, I can get this up for
Oh
everyone.
yeah, we
I
want to
guess we'll
post
find out
this.
together.
Yeah, we're gonna see if we can post the show. Hopefully, you will see the show on the Everybody Settle Down YouTube page, which is where our. If you're listening to us on podcast, by the way, and you want to see our beautiful faces, that we do post these episodes, or as Brian says, we try to post these episodes on the Everybody Settle Down YouTube page going forward. So if you haven't already, go check out that page, like and subscribe. All right, any final thoughts this week?
No, it's time for bed, buddy.
Okay, there we go. For Brian Johnson, I'm Eric Messersmith. Thanks for being with us. We hope you enjoyed the show. But if not, please take no offense.